if there's one thing this is, it's Spoilerin time. And on this episode of Spoilerin time, we will spoil episode 8 of season 1 of Justified, as we do. Episode 4 of season 1 of 11/22/63, the Hulu original mini event. We will spoil half of season 4 of House of Cards up through episode 7, and episode 3, season 2, Better Call Saul. But the person that I want to spoil the most is you, Brian Brushwood.
Oh, you mean like with flowers or
with
like
candies,
expired meats?
Beer, barbecued
That's great.
meats.
I'll take all of those. I'll take all the spoilage.
I'll take all of them from your house when I show up later this week for South by Southwest.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're going to be live from your Central Coast studios. Very, very excited. We've made a number of upgrades at this studio, and
I know,
you're going to
I'm
be the
excited to see what
first
you got.
outsider to test drive it. You'll be the first to be our first client. I'm going to charge you a penny.
Can't wait to be the third wheel of the third coast.
Hey man, shall we dive into some of the triage?
Yeah, there's no movie draft because I won it, so let's do triage.
Oh, gosh, always on with it. Triage, it's time for triage, where we read
You're
letters.
gonna die, so we don't treat you down. We read this email instead. Hey, we got an email that says, I wanted to let you know that the number for Davis and Maine of Better Call Saul really works. My girlfriend and I called it for a goof, and the recorded voice goes into a whole spiel about the Sandpiper class action lawsuit. Call it for yourself, 505-242-7700.
And that's the number that they gave on the show. And what's funny is normally whenever they give a number, it takes me out of the story because it's always 555. But they mentioned that they had 20 extensions set up, ready to receive a bunch of calls. It was an integral plot point. So looking back, it's like, well, of course they would get the number, and then they would, of course they would just. Can we go on a field trip? Can we actually experience this?
Okay, we've got our
My
high-tech.
brain looked at this and said, oh, it's 555 because it's 505.
Oh, that's great. All right. So, all right, let's work.
Because if anybody doesn't know, the 555 area code is nil.
Oh,
There's
here we go,
never any
here we go.
numbers. That's the one they usually use on TV shows because there's no real numbers in that area.
This call may be monitored for quality assurance. Your use of this service does not constitute attorney-client privilege. Thank you for calling the law offices of Davis and Maine for your free class action consultation. If you or a loved one is a resident of a Sandpiper Crossing assisted living facility, you may be eligible for monetary compensation. Please leave your name, number, and your state of residence, and your call will be returned within 24 hours.
Hang up. Thank goodness.
I don't know what to do with that.
Brian Tomlinson.
I didn't know what I was gonna say. I was like, I like your show, guys.
I was gonna go full and leave a Sandpiper related.
Oh, that's such a Tom way to handle it.
He took my nest egg.
Well, hey man, let's dive in. Let's talk about Better Call Saul. What did you think of this episode?
It's a great episode. I don't have much to say because it feels like it's just carrying the momentum forward at this point of all of the themes we've been talking about, where Jimmy chafes under authority, he chafes under waiting, and this is the first time, I guess, in a couple of episodes where we see him meeting the consequences of that behavior. It's not the consequences of his actions. It's not like he made a huge mistake. He's done, in this case, I think it's interesting, he's done a good thing. He ran this commercial and it had great response and it totally worked and he was right, but he didn't follow the rules.
Well, and also I feel like it was a bit of a puffed up. I mean, if I'm going to make a prediction, this will turn out to not be a huge deal because he's delivering results. And the worst I could imagine is that he gets a slap on the wrist. And because they clearly set it up at the end of the episode where it's like, tomorrow we're going to watch this ad and decide if it's tasteful enough, which I think it is. It's clearly not like he went salacious. Although their reaction may in some way shape the eventual direction that he goes with his over-the-top advertising. Meanwhile, on the Mike side of things, we see a fascinating development as he starts to catch his daughter-in-law telling fibs about is she hitting him up for money? You know, he's now staying out all night, and it's such a Mike way to handle it, where it's like he doesn't, hey, can I stay? She's like, no, you don't need to. And he's like, all right, well, stakeout it'll be. And there he waits. I thought all of that was fantastic. And I kind of smelled the nacho cameo at the end, or not cameo, but turns out that it's nacho.
You smelled the nachos?
Yeah, I did. I could tell nachos were about to be delivered, and delivered they were, sir. I gotta tell you, everything moves the story forward. We see the tension with Jimmy and his girlfriend about how she supports him when he needs the support, but the slightest hint of impropriety, she punishes him. She's clearly determined to be as ethical as possible as an attorney. And we are seeing him struggle and try as hard as he can, but also dealing with the very difficult pressures of his brother on there. It's just wonderful. This show, is it too much to say it might be better than Breaking Bad? It might be a better show, full stop.
I think as long as you've got a might in there, I can accept that, which is I don't think it is yet. And even like season 2 to season 2, I'm not sure that it's better, but it might be. I definitely believe that this is not after MASH. This is not Joey. This is a fully fledged story of its own. Somebody asked us on Twitter, can I just jump in on season 2 of Better Call Saul, or will it be better for me to watch season 1? I felt very comfortable saying you can jump into season 2. It's that good that you can just jump in and you will be able to understand it and it will be great. It will be better if you watch season 1 because it is a lovely buildup to season 2. But I think that's a sign of a really strong series, is that you can come in midstream and get a lot out of it, even if that's not the optimal way to do it.
Well, and even if you're unfamiliar with the story of Breaking Bad, they do, all of a sudden you realize those beginning vignettes at the beginning of each of the seasons that clearly show Saul Goodman or Jimmy McGill in a bad place at some point in the future is enough foreshadowing for you to understand that all does not end well in this story.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the brilliance of it, is they're telling a fractal bit of Saul's story. And if you know more of Saul's story from the future, that's great. If you don't, you can get most of it by implication. And like you say, I don't expect Jimmy to get fired next week. What I expect is him to get in trouble. And I think you're absolutely right. The commercial works. They're not going to dump him, but they're going to put him on probation. They're like, look, you can't do this, Jimmy. That's going to get him in trouble with Kim because he lied to her and said he had approval. And then she's going to find out he didn't. And it's going to put him in trouble with his brother. And then and that's just more little nudges down that road to becoming Saul Goodman.
Well, and I think what's going to happen is as he encounters these bumps on the road, he will discover that it's the little lies that get you in trouble. Yeah. It's the big lies that get you rich and promoted and beloved by everyone.
Yeah,
and I think
that is the puzzle that we are putting the pieces in.
Right, correct. And we're seeing him get caught in little lies and suffering for it. And whereas every time we see him lie big, it seems to pay off pretty well.
All right, let's move along to House of Cards season 4. I'll just go ahead and lay out the basics of what we thought of episodes 1 through 7. Though people should know that Eileen and I were so swept up in it that we just went ahead and watched the whole thing between Friday night and Saturday night. It was also really rainy here, so it wasn't like we were going to go out and do much else. The first 5 episodes are really what I think swept us into wanting to watch the whole season, because they move, they're dramatic, they're interesting. They are better, in my opinion, than anything we've seen storyline, or at least more compelling, since the first season, because they turn things on their head. And it's really interesting to see Claire driving the bus, or at least trying to. And one of my problems with season 3 was you see Frank sort of fumbling around. There's not a big bad. There's not a big goal for him to wrap his brain around an assault. And now you did have that with Claire in both directions. After episode 5, I feel like it slowed back down. Still better than season 3, in my opinion, but started to become a more traditional story again.
Yes. Okay. First of all, did you notice that he didn't speak to us home viewers until nearly the end of the second episode? Which is the longest they've ever gone.
Is it the longest they've ever gone?
Yeah.
I thought there were bunches of episodes where he didn't speak to us. What stuck out to me is that he spoke to us a lot in that second episode. It was not just he doesn't know. It was let me tell you a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let me first of all, let me say all this. I enjoyed it a lot. I maybe enjoyed this almost as much as the first season. The troubles I had with season 2 and season 3 were stories, were difficulties of like not grasping what's happening, not getting like, why isn't he doing X, Y, or Z or whatever. The beauty of this season is in its simplicity and in its directness. You have Lucas getting out of prison, who has one thing: he wants to get the truth out about Frank Underwood. You have Claire, who wants one thing: to be politically respected and to not be married to her asshole husband anymore. You have even Frank. Frank is just wanting one thing: for everyone to get the hell in line, and he's willing to bully them around. The pacing is great. I liked it a lot, in spite of the fact that some very, very, very silly stuff is happening.
Like, what do you consider to be the silly stuff? I'm curious.
The proposal, and again, they eventually work around to it, and crazy soap opera logic comes to work. But the fact that out of nowhere, Claire says, "I want to be your running mate. I should be the vice president." And it's like, you might as well have said, "I want to eat coconut snowflakes on the moon." It's like, that would make just as much sense to me. And then likewise, and plus the trope about being shot and in a coma and all your sins flashing before you. That's straight out of Days of Our Lives in the mid 1980s. It is a silly, silly soap opera for me. It's beautiful. It's well acted. It scoops you up on these crazy journeys. And there's something just the slightest bit wacky about this season. Lots of weird flashbacks. Lots of weird, hey, let's get Kate Mara, dress her up like Claire, and then have her do a lap dance on Frank Underwood. Why not? Wacky time. Less of Frank talking to us directly, so much more of just weird flashes of what's going on in his mind, which, again, tonally, it's a very big break from the other episodes, from the other seasons, but it's just wacky enough for me to not mind any of the insanity of this ride that we're taking.
I can totally get behind you on the weirdness of Frank's dream sequences. I wouldn't call them soap opera like, because they're more filmic than that. And getting Zoe back and getting what's his face back as the dead people is kind of interesting, and it's fun to see the cameo appearances. But they did strike me a little bit of like, well, what do we do with Kevin through these episodes? Because we're paying him all this money, and we really shouldn't waste him just laying there in a coma. So it gave him a little business to do. On the other hand, I found that Claire wanting to be VP was perfectly logical. I feel like we've been setting that up since season 1, which is she is just as interested in power, just as competent as Frank, and is willing to do this for them, and realizes, because she became ambassador last year, or last season, I mean, that she can do this. And she is so angry with Frank, she is like, well, I can do this better than him. So I am going to show him that I am as good or better at this sort of manipulation as he is.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, I should point out that when I say it's soap opera-like, I don't mean that in execution in any way. You know, of course, that is one of the things that defines soap operas is the cheapness of their production. This is an exquisite production.
There was some soft focus in the Zoe Dream scene.
Okay, there definitely is. A whole lot of setting up plans for a third of an episode and then just sweeping them off the table all in one fell swoop with some major plot shift. And again, that's fine. That's fine. I have now been fully primed for that and enjoyed it quite a bit.
And I knew they were going to shoot Frank at some point. That's one of the hallmarks of House of Cards, is that everything that's ever happened to a U.S. president is going to happen to Frank. And that's so funny. In a way, it's like, oh, really? Now he gets an assassination attempt? Come on. But that's the universe. Like, it wouldn't be as interesting of a show if they're like, he's going to battle an education bill once, and that's actually a typical presidency. Like, that's not fun. So they're gonna throw everything in here that any presidential. We've got elements of Ford, Nixon, Clinton, and Kennedy. And so it made sense that they were going to play that. And I was glad they waited until now to play it. I'm a little curious, like, okay, now all that we have left is for him to fight an actual presidential election, and then what?
Yeah, and I'm at that point right now where spoilers, he finally has locked up the Democratic nomination, and they're building up his arch rival on the Republican side, this golden boy who has an exciting, wonderful social media filled life that I think is great. Oh, doggone it! There was something I was going to ask. It was regarding Frank Underwood. Nope, I've lost it. I'm old and forget things instantly.
Frank Underwear?
What's that?
Was it about Frank Underwear?
Oh, no, Frank Underwear. I was a bit disappointed during his coma scenes that it's clear that it was his sins coming back to revisit him, and we only saw Peter and Zoe, the two people that we've seen him kill. I've always assumed he's done in other people. I would have loved it if it was Peter, and I understand storytelling-wise, you don't want to complicate it for the viewer and so on. Would have loved it if it was Peter and Zoe and 2 or 3 other people. You know, maybe a kid when he was 17 that he pushed off a tree once, or just to imply that there's a lot more depth to his evil than we've been along for the ride.
That would be interesting. I would have wanted more hints of that along the way to give me the fulfillment there. Like maybe Tom, the writer, started to touch on like maybe he tells us a story about a fight with a kid that ended up with him being in the hospital, and it turns out actually what he was hiding from Tom is that he killed the kid, and we find it out in the dream sequence. That would actually make the dream sequence have a little more agency. I love that idea.
Yeah. No, I would have been down for that. But regardless, enjoying it quite a bit. I think my expectations have exactly synced up with what they aimed to deliver, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, let's see if the same can be said of 11/22/63.
Ooh, boy.
As we get to episode 4, wherein it has become a love story. And maybe 2 love stories. Yeah, wait, Brian. You're talking about
I'm sorry. Well, I had a terrible nightmare. I dreamt I spent an hour watching absolutely nothing happen. Not a single damn thing, except for people almost getting upset with other people, but not really. But getting ready, they might. You never know.
Actually, the one scene that I liked and I didn't love this episode either, as you might be able to tell, was when he stood up to the ex-husband, or the not ex-husband, the current husband.
That was great. That was one of those scene. That was great specifically for the use of the F-bomb. And it's like, you remember, you can say that, because it was so out of place in this polite 1960s society for him to say it twice, and in that hateful, vindictive way to drop that invective. I thought it was great.
Well, and what I was thinking while I was watching this is he is showing more strength than he has, probably intentionally, because the norms of society then would be maybe drop that F-bomb once, and but nobody would really drop it a lot. Whereas what he said in 2016 would be considered like, okay, the guy's swearing a lot. Maybe it's considered bluster. It might even make him look weaker. But in this situation, it's scary.
Oh, yeah. And plus, I don't know, he can speak with that confidence because he literally has the ability to reset the universe. He has godlike powers. He just drives to a place, walks in a room, walks out, and everything is undone, you know? Yeah. And I think you see a little bit of his strength there. I got a curious comment from somebody on Twitter saying that the reason he dislikes the show is because it sells that bogus lone gunman theory that we all know is fake, which I thought was so curious. Like, this all happened before I was born. It's as though somebody's genuinely mad about the Spanish-American War or something. It's like,
well, and maybe he knows something I don't, but at this point, he's trying to find out if the lone gunman theory is true or not.
Yeah, exactly. But this person just didn't like it. Yeah.
Like, he would obviously know better. And yeah, I mean, it's actually implying that Oswald is a patsy so far in episode 4. And I guess one of the other things I was thinking about last night was, wow, we're halfway through. There's only 8 episodes.
Oh, jeez. That's a real bummer.
I feel like we've made... I mean, I guess we're making progress because we have the idea that Oswald is meeting with CIA and they're connecting him and all of this, but
None of us care about that. That's
Yeah,
the
it's a
least
side
interesting part of the entire story. What I care about is the relationship with the girl. I care about the mystery of the rabbit hole and what he can and can't do. I care about what happens if and when he's able to get his mission, because the whole thing is predicated upon this theory that saving Kennedy will end up being a good thing. Will it? That's what I care about.
Yeah,
Not.
Yeah. You want to have a personal story, and it's great to have a love story, and it's even great to have Billy have a crush on Marina, because that complicates things, and that is a natural thing. But I felt like this episode in particular, like it was all love story, and the Lee Harvey Oswald stuff was sort of an annoyance for him. I even started to feel like, gosh, why does he even live in Dallas? Like he should just stay in Jody. It would make things so much simpler. And I'm like, oh right, because he has to spy on Oswald. I forgot. That's the whole point that he's here.
Yeah. So, what do you think in terms of? I was chatting on Twitter and you responded. I said that I think I would enjoy this so much more if it was a bingeable experience.
Yes.
I think this story is seriously hobbled by the week-to-week release.
Yeah, and this love story, that's what I've found binging things versus waiting week to week to watch them is, and Lost is a great example of this too. Those connective stories don't stick out as much to you when you're watching several in a row. They just feel like the second act. And when you're waiting week to week, you're like, really, that's all I got? That's all the progress I made on the story? I don't know. I don't know that Hulu is wrong to do it that way. Maybe they're telling the story in a bingeable fashion, and it really should be told in a week to week fashion.
This is the problem, is that Hulu's brand, it's this kind of week after week release is built into Hulu's brand. That's why they're Pepsi, not Netflix's Coke.
Right.
And so as a result, they're kind of obligated to sing this song. I don't think anyone likes the song. I take that back. There was a couple of people on Twitter that were like, oh, I don't know, I like the anticipation. And if that's you, then good for you. Enjoy Pepsi.
Let's finish up with Justified episode 8, season 1, wherein we have a little standoff, another procedural bit of plot where a prisoner being transferred grabs some hostages, and we have a showdown situation, bookended by a tiny bit of progress in the Crowder story. And when you started with the Crowder and then you move into the guy pulling the hostage bit, I wanted to not like this episode. I wanted to be bored. And God darn it, if I didn't really enjoy the negotiation episode.
I am in the exact same. On paper, I should have hated this. It's another monster of the week. It's a step backwards from the big story. However, the fact that it's bookended by the fact that he can't handle things the way he normally does. He knows he's under scrutiny, under investigation, shapes things, and who knows how he might have done it. I mean, certainly his boss was saying, "You get that shot, you take it." Maybe he would have jumped, and he even has the attorney general. I don't know what the guy
State's
who's
attorney,
investigating
I think,
him,
right? District attorney,
district
attorney,
whoever it is. He has that guy saying, "No, I'm with him. Go ahead and shoot the guy." But instead, he works it out. And meanwhile, as far as prisoners in a standoff situation goes, this guy's pretty interesting in that he's so self-referential. He's seen the script. He knows how this goes. Oh, you establishing rapport with me right now? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. And I think one of the other things I liked is, even while he's being self-referential, he was actually not being dismissive. He wasn't being mindless about it. Like, no, you're just going to say this and I'm going to say F you. He was like, so this is the part where you're doing this. How good are you at it? I've done this a few times. Like, it was almost friendly with Raylan.
Yeah. And although again, little bit silly that the solution was to buy some fried chicken and have some bourbon. A little bit poor communication skills for the errand boy cop to walk in and angrily seize chicken rather than saying, "Hi, someone's gonna die unless I take this. I'm gonna take this."
Yeah.
But again, it's Hollywood.
And the SWAT team being bluffed into thinking that they had some case against them, and that's why they held off to wait for the chicken. Yeah, there's some links that don't quite link up, but overall, just
what about that end part when they finally get to the investigation and you think it's going to go one way, and instead the investigation it starts off as a deposition. And he's about to take his statement, and then instead he just gives up. He was like, "Yeah, no, this is serious." And like at some point, it clearly stops being an interrogation, and he just goes off. And they're like, "All right, well, I guess we got a thing to worry about. We're on a team together now, I guess."
Well, and he was like, "Shit, I didn't expect you to ask me that. I really was, like all bets are off." And now that's become a much more dangerous game that they're playing, and yet you've preserved that brotherhood of cops feeling, I think, is why they did it that way. And then of course you get to see the Crowders reunited as he's released from jail.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job. This was the episode where Crowder the Elder sits down across from her, says, "I'm gonna lick your pie" or whatever.
That's at the beginning.
Yeah, man, that they do a pretty good job of making him a creepy old guy.
Yeah, he is Mr. Friendly from Lost, by the way. And he is Mr. Very Not Friendly here.
Yeah, no kidding. Still enjoying it, even though we shouldn't at this point. I feel guilty for enjoying this episode as much as I did. And again, I still have the itch to go ahead of you, but I'm going to not do that.
So Bo is the dad. Boyd is Walton Goggins.
Got it.
Try to keep that. They add letters as the generations continue. That's how I'll try to remember that. But yeah, sorry, folks. Enjoying Justified.
Yeah, for all you who hoped we'd hate it and just resent doing this, all you people who said it was a mistake to watch Justified, none of you.
Turns out all those people who said we should watch this show were justified.
Oh, God, you did it again. You did it again, Tom. You're killing me.
Wait, you gonna outdraw me, Brian?
No, I stop. Wrap it up. Send in stuff at cordkillers@gmail.com. Love you guys.
Bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.